here's the goal. We're gonna have my 1UZ swap Toyota pickup running and driving in some way, shape, or form by the end of this video, and that's a guarantee. In the last video, we got the engine and transmission situated inside the bay of my Toyota pickup. We made some real nice engine mounts with the arc droid. And the next step to making it running and driving is to install the transfer cases. We made this crossmember in one of the earlier videos in the series when I first got my arc droid and I wanted to learn how to use it. I took a trip to my friend's shop, Ethan from Grindhard Plumbing Co., because he's got an arc droid, and he showed me how to draw up everything and how to use the arc droid, which is why there's hexagons all over this. And I don't know if you technically even need RTV between the transmission and the T-cases here. I don't remember if there's actually any oil in here because I think there's seals on both sides. But just to be safe, we'll give it some RTV anyways. It doesn't hurt. That should be lots. Now, it's time to struggle. Okay. Oh, do I need a better plan? Oh, I've done this before. This is always a good time. My head's in the way. That's not fun. Attempt 3. Gotta get this up before the RTV dries. What if we cheat and use the jack? This is still really awkward. Jack, get up with my foot while balancing the thing. Don't fall. I said don't fall. It's coming down. I'm having fun. This is fun. Am I feeling strong? No, but this has gotta go. Well, let's put it in its hole. Could be easy. Done this before. Should go easy. What do you mean we're hitting the floor? Guess I gotta beat the tunneling. This is really beating me up here. I can see where it's hitting there. I think it's hitting over here too. And yes, I'm using a claw hammer because I can't find my mini sledge. Well, at least that's beating in rather nicely. On this side, and grab the grinder, cut a bit of this heat shield out first. And beat. Alright, I think it'll fit now when I'm ready to wrestle. Which is soon because this RTV's almost dry. Let's go, struggle time, let's go! I don't want to do this, but it's gotta be done. It's gotta be done. We need dual transfer cases. Dual transfer cases are life. I just really don't want to do this. Good. Now I got sharp things in my hair. It's a cool bonus. Up. We got a bolt started! Yay! Oh my goodness. Remember how I said I'm not gonna use this? I think I am. It still pretty much works with the new engine position, except for this top positioning plate. If I cut this off, I can just move it around. These transfer cases are as high as they could go. I thought that maybe the transfer cases were a little bit higher than they used to be because of their position difference from the floor to the top of the cases. What's throwing me off is the fact that I had a body lift before, so there was a ton of room. So if I was to re-engineer a crossmember, I don't think it would be much different than this already is. And this just bolts up, and they already made it. So let's cut this plate off. So while I'm working on the crossmember here, I decided to recut this piece. This guy was actually a miscut. If you look at the amount of material left here, and the amount of material left here, it's just not right. I didn't cut properly at Ethan's house when we made the crossmember, and we're out of material, so that's why I ended up using it. But now we got a new one that's not missing all that material. So now we take this guy, bolt it to the bottom of the cross members, and then swing that guy into place. Just like that. Look at it! Looks so good! The last thing I need to do before it's ready to get bolted in forever, well, there's a couple of last things I need to do. We're gonna build a brace that goes from here up to here. Just to kind of stiffen this out, make it more like a skid plate-ish. Then, of course, the last step, paint. Time for the cross member to go in its home for good. For good for now. Sweet! The cross member is in place, and that only means one thing. Cue the hooking everything up and getting this thing running time lapse.
Wires tangled in a snake pit, hands covered in grease and grit, 89 bones but a new heartbeat. Sweat falls like dirty rain in streaks. Plug it in, feel the spark ignite. Bring the beast back to life tonight. Wiring up this monster ride. Electric phase, make it come alive.
In theory, we're ready to turn the key and fire up the 1UZ. But first, I'm just gonna trigger the fuel pump, make sure that we don't have any leaks anywhere, because we don't want any of them fires, and then it's the moment of truth. No leaks on the side. Fuel injectors, nope. Fuel filter, return, looks good. And the other bank, no leaks. All right. Oh, it tried. Success! And just like that, we are one step closer to driving this thing out of the shop. It is time to take a quick break from this video to talk about the sponsor for today's video, Onyx Off-Road. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about Onyx a lot in the past few months, but did you know they are not only great for off-road navigation, they can actually save you money when you're building trucks. With your Onyx Elite membership, you get exclusive deals to a ton of brands, like 74 Weld, Barnes Off-Road, Decked, Marlin Crawler, and even Warn, which offers a 20% discount with your Onyx Elite membership. So if you think about it, you buy one winch with Warn at a 20% discount, and your Onyx Elite membership is practically paid for itself. Make sure you guys check out Onyx with my link in the video description below. Subscribe to their Elite membership. You get tons of crazy benefits, and they're the best off-road navigational app around. Anyways, back to the build. Since we know that the 1UZ runs, and runs great, time to move on to the other things I need to do to make this thing move. And one of the most important things being brakes. Now, if I were to plan ahead, it probably would have been easier to kind of fish these lines over behind the motor there before the motor went into place, but I didn't. So now we just gotta deal with doing it. Brake booster and master. So from here, what do we need to get this thing driving? And by driving, I mean just pretty much in and out of the shop. Obviously, there's no cooling system, and I'm waiting for parts to fully connect everything. But to be able to drive this out of the shop, what does it need? We need a way to activate the clutch. The one line got installed with those brake lines yesterday, and I even threw the clutch master cylinder in. Some form of steering would be nice to take it in and out of the shop. And the last thing I can think of is a rear drive shaft. Once the engine is connected to the axles, which can then put power to the ground, and it runs right now, so theoretically it would move. Another great idea would be brakes, but currently we've got no calipers, rotors, or anything attached to the front tires. And just to get this thing in and out of the shop, it's not really necessary. In a pinch, I'm gonna kill the ignition and the gears will just stop this thing right where it lies. So I'll probably leave that as a future video problem to solve. Off camera, I like half installed the headers just to make sure everything clears. Make sure we've got clearance between the tower and the headers, the new engine mounts and the headers, and the firewall to the headers. And it's safe to say everything when it comes to the headers looks like it's gonna clear, except I'm going to make one change. I never liked how big and bulky this end plate on the headers is, so instead of that, I'm gonna take the headers back out, cut off the ends, and instead of those big flanges, I'm gonna convert it to V-bands. As you can tell, I've already finished up one of the headers here. I cut off this flange on the end, put a V-band in its place, deleted the O2 sensor bung, and then heat wrapped it. I think this is gonna be ultimately what the final product of the headers is gonna be. So now it's time to just replicate this guy over here. Now that I've got both the headers done and fit up with these V-bands here, I unfortunately can't install them until tomorrow because I don't currently have the new exhaust manifold gaskets. Those arrive tomorrow. So in the meantime, I think we're gonna go move over to the interior of the truck because we have got to fill this massive hole that I made in the floor. Now, this isn't required to drive the truck in and out of the shop by any means, but I'm currently kind of at a standstill waiting for parts, so hey, it's on the list. Might as well start working on that list. After battling with my floor here all day, we got the floor all sealed up. You guys might remember years ago on the fire recovery, like after this truck burnt down, when we rebuilt it, I laid like some Killmat sound deadening on the floor and then used a bed liner over top of the entire floor. And that made cleaning up the surface to weld very difficult. I'm not lying when it said it took all day to do that. Just cleaning up, scraping up all the gunk and wire wheeling it down was not fun, but I got it done. And after, to make it all watertight, I went around with some seam sealer, went around all of the edges, and then gave her a coat of paint. And the worst part is this is probably totally not even necessary. I cut the floor out to try to bolt up the transmission to the old engine location. And then of course I changed my mind because I didn't want to mess with like the dash supports or rebuilding anything in here. So instead I just made some compromises and moved the motor, making this probably redundant. But hey, that's just part of it. We should be good now. Unfortunately, we're still waiting on parts that are supposed to arrive today, and I can't keep going on the engine side of things until those arrive. So in the meantime, while I'm on a roll here with the heater box installed, I think we'll just roll on putting this interior back together so it starts to look like a truck again. I think that this is about as far as I care to go when it comes to putting the interior back together. I've still got a fair bit of like wire cleanup and routing and stuff like that that I need to do, which is just easier without all of this stuff in the way. But check out what just arrived. We got exhaust manifold gaskets, which means those guys can go in. Slide the gasket in, up with the headers. The headers are installed, and that means we get to build an exhaust. You can kind of get an idea of the game plan based off of what I have laid out here on the floor. Off of the headers, I got these like little bend pieces that are going to come in. There's going to be a crossover under the transmission with this flex pipe here, and those guys are eventually going to meet at this Y. From the Y, we are jumping up to a 3-inch diameter tubing out and into a 3-inch muffler. Why 3-inch? Because it's a V8 and we want to let her sing. So here's what we got going on with the exhaust so far. This side, we drop down. We're pretty close to the transmission, but we are well out of the way of this upper link. And this guy is gonna come across and connect to the top of this Y. Then this guy is gonna come up, bend over, run underneath this, and connect to the bottom of the Y. Wish that this guy was a bit tighter, and I might unbolt it, cut this guy off, and try to cheat a bit more of a bend into it. But I think the driver's side is essentially dialed. Doing this exhaust stuff is like really time consuming, and there's a lot of put stuff in, take it out, put it in, take it out, as you're like mocking things up, tacking it in the truck, pulling it out to weld it, and it's been all day. But we have kind of an exhaust. Comes down from the headers, boom, crosses over here. Lots of drive shaft clearance here, which is nice. And the other side stays high and clear of the upper link. And they both come over here and then collect into one 3-inch piece. I've probably taken this whole thing out and back in at least a couple dozen times, well, in pieces, and I've had to make a couple of runs to the auto parts store to get various things like this 90 and this 90 and this big long straight piece that goes over to that chunk. You don't know how you're gonna piece all this stuff together until the time comes. But from here, it's gonna be super easy. It's just a piece of 3-inch tube to a muffler to another piece of 3-inch tube and dump somewhere back there. Oh yeah, and connect it to hangers and all that jazz. But we're winning and it's quitting time, which means that is a tomorrow issue. See the sign here? This is what is going to become a fan shroud. Should be plenty thick enough for what we need. I just gotta kinda cut out a big square of it, put a couple of holes in it, and then bolt it to the radiator, attach those guys, and then send the whole package into the truck. Doesn't this thing look so good? I'm actually pretty stoked with how it turned out. I ended up using double-sided tape in between the fan and the shroud, and then between the shroud and the radiator to try to seal it off a bit more. But now it's time for the moment of truth. Does it fit? When I checked fitment, I had the fans like right up against the radiator, but now there's at least like a 1/4-inch gap between the end of the fan and the radiator because of the shroud pushing it out. So hopefully we're still good. All right. Like a glove. Spin you. There is clearance. 3/4 of an inch between this pulley and the bottom of the fan, but clearance is clearance. That fits so good. Man, this thing makes me happy. I think this is probably gonna solve my overheating issues, and if it doesn't, I still got one more trick up my sleeve, but I don't want to go that route unless I have to. Also, something else I made today was a couple of danger frisbees. Anyone want to play? Today is the final day I have of working on this thing before we need to get this video out. Realistically, we're down to steering and rear drive shaft. We got the radiator all like mocked up into place. There's no coolant lines, nothing like that, because I don't have the parts. And really, we don't need cooling to run for 30 seconds in and out of the shop. For the sake of this video and to get my driving the truck challenge done, I think it's time to move on to steering, which I am not super confident is gonna work. The steering box bolts on down there, and then we need to send the steering shaft up through this tiny little gap between the tower and the valve covers and headers into its hole in the firewall. And I don't think the stock steering shaft is gonna work. Remember how I said this truck had a body lift before? The sheet metal was never in the way of the steering box before. Now that there's no body lift, lifting the sheet metal up 2 inches, steering box no fitty. Time for more grinding. I can already tell there's gonna be an issue. This is the rag joint that used to come off of here, and it is just smashing right into the header now at nowhere near the right angle anymore. I wasn't optimistic the steering shaft was gonna bolt in and work anymore with the new engine position. I guess we're not getting steering this week. It is drive shaft time, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully this is still gonna work. Sick! We got a drive shaft. Well, the shop door's open, the truck is lined up. Let's see how this goes. So this week we got the transfer cases installed, the cross member all welded up and fitted with the new transfer case location. We installed the headers, built a whole custom exhaust out to 3-inch, fixed the hole in my floor, put the interior back together, figured out if the rad was gonna fit, built that custom shroud for the fans, installed the steering box, installed the drive shaft, and then we freaking drove this thing out of the shop, just like I said. Anyways, guys, that's about it for this week's episode. If you could do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button, and hey, consider subscribing or buying some merch. We upload weekly Toyota building, wheeling, and off-roading content. Anyways, we'll catch you next week. Peace.